And I think that when somebody recognizes all the work you've done on yourself, it almost allows you to extra recognize how much work you've done on yourself. So I think there's a big difference between needing validation, seeking validation, and receiving validation that pushes something over the edge.
I already knew it in me. That's why I think therapy is a game changer, because you need to hear it from someone else. You can't just hear it from yourself. And I don't believe people that say that. They're like, well, only you can give you the love that you always needed. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's true. I think there's a part of us that will always need external love.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, yesterday's episode. It was episode number 1543, the 4 S's of clarity. Today, for episode number 1544, I'm moving my screens all around, it's mayhem. What does your inner child need to hear? Had maybe the most powerful interaction I've had with a quote-unquote stranger in, this might be the longest ever. This might be like the most profound thing that has happened to me with a stranger ever.
Well,
it's quite I have to live up to that now. It's quite a hook.
State and prove.
Alan's way. I was on a podcast last week. It was last Friday, last thing before Taryn and I went out to dinner with a couple of our friends. And this podcast was a podcast for mostly men. And the host was a coach of a men's group. So we log on, we connect, we get the interview going, and it was going really well. The host and I were connecting really well. It was great. And we get to probably halfway in, and the host said, I have to apologize to you for something. And I said, yeah, go ahead. And he said, I had a preconceived notion of who you were going to be. I did some research, and I looked you up, and you're tattooed, and you're a bodybuilder, and peak performance, and next level, and martial arts, and I assumed that you were just going to be hoorah, and just high vibe inspiration, and get it done, and this, and this, and this. And he said, I apologize that I painted you with that picture. Or I painted you with that brush, whatever the saying is. And then he just said some very nice things. He said, you're amazing, you're super wise, and you're balanced, and all these things. And I was crying. At this point, I had started crying. And then him and I had a really good, you want to talk about a vulnerable conversation. I mean, I was like, I have love for you, and you've made me feel safe enough to be as open as I am, so I hope you feel some of that love coming back to you. And it was just wonderful. We hung out after for a little bit, and I said, I got to go. I'd love to stay and chat. I'll come back anytime. Just great. It was wonderful. And when I got off, I was talking to Taryn, and she said, why do you think it happened that way? And I said, honestly, because I got love from a man. And I think that's something I've always wanted. Alan and I didn't have father figures. And I go on a lot of shows that are hosted by women, and they give me a lot of love, and I'm super grateful for that. But it's never felt like I really needed that. And I told her, I said, I think I've wanted that. I think I've longed for that for years. And Alan gives me that. I get that from Alan, and I get that from Matt, and I get that from my friends. But that's different. That's someone who knows me. This person didn't know who I was. They thought I was going to be a certain way, and I was actually, for lack of better phrasing, better than they expected. And I said, that was everything to me. I couldn't contain myself. What does your inner child need to hear? My inner child really needed to hear a man say, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your character. I'm proud of who you are. I think you're a really great man. And it was huge for me. It was huge. There was a time when I was in high school, or I might have been fresh out of high school, but I was spending time with one of my best friend's parents, and we were drinking responsibly. We were responsibly drinking, but still, I was underage. And there was at one point
responsibly drinking underage,
but underage.
So I don't know if those two go hand in hand. Little side tangent.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I had a really good relationship with this family and with the father in particular. And there was a point, and this was too heavy. This is too heavy for a high schooler to hear. But there was a point where he said, I wish you were my son. I really wish you were my son and not my son. And it was heavy. It was like, that is a heavy thing. But it felt as bad as it felt on one end. It felt really good on the other end because I had never had anybody say that to me. My own father didn't want me around. The fact that you do is amazing. That's exactly what I needed to hear. So that was the inspiration behind today's episode, because maybe you've had the benefit of somebody saying what your inner child needed to hear, and you had some sort of emotional breakdown and you don't know why. I was able to connect the dots pretty quickly just because Alan and I have talked about it so often, not having male role models growing up. And I thought it might be a valuable episode. Maybe you hear the story and you connect with it, or maybe you hear the story and it makes you, or gives you the opportunity to reflect on some of your experiences.
You ever hear someone say, you got to give that to yourself because other people might not give it to you, that kind of thing? And
100%.
What I think is fascinating is, and I think it's both. I do therapy. I'm also a coach. When I say I do therapy, I mean I'm in therapy. And when I'm coaching people, a lot of times I'm trying to understand what they need to hear to unlock them. And I was on the phone with a client recently that, how do I articulate this high level? Definitely struggling with self-love. Definitely doesn't like the way she looks. Definitely never has, even though this person's beautiful from my perspective. And what I realized, and this is my truth, and I share this with her, but I'll keep it anonymous, I think that you are looking to hear that from your mother or from your father. I think it's mother. My intuition says mother. And here's the thing. I don't know if her mom's ever going to say that. And she literally said, she's like, well, my mom always said I was ugly and, that I never looked good in this or never, it was definitely not positive. It was very, I guess, this person never felt attractive. And her parents definitely didn't pour into her feeling attractive. So, and then there's that, okay, well, you're going to have to give yourself those compliments. But there's a part of me that doesn't think that's going to work. Because I think it's both. I think you need to, give yourself the love you never had. But I think on top of that, is it true that we can just go meditate in a cave and tell ourselves the wonderful things about ourselves that we always needed to hear from our parents? I'm not convinced. Think about it, Kev. What if I had told you, oh, you got to give that to yourself, man? Would you have broke down crying? Probably not.
I feel like I have given it to myself.
That's what I mean, right? Isn't it? It's got to be
different.
both.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different. Okay, that's what I want to go into if you're game. Yeah, Why is it different?
It's external validation. I was on a podcast, and we were talking about confidence. It was the same podcast. This was a wonderful... I really wish I remember the gentleman's name, because I want to give a proper shout-out to this person. Remind me to look it up before we get off. And we were talking about confidence. And I said, when I think about confidence, I don't think of it from the perspective of I don't care what anybody thinks. I think of it from the perspective of I am so centered in who I am and the work I'm doing on myself. Not that I'm perfect and I don't need any work. But if people don't like me in the room, I know I'm going to like myself when I go anyway. When I leave, I'm going to like myself. And I think that's really a good measure of confidence for me, at least. And I think that when somebody recognizes all the work you've done on yourself, it almost allows you to extra recognize how much work you've done on yourself. So I think there's a big difference between needing validation, seeking validation, and receiving validation that pushes something over the edge. I would say that was the experience for me. I do believe I'm a good man. I work really hard to be a good man. And my goal is always to deliver and be different than you expect I'm going to be. That's always one of my goals. But I think the other piece of it too was the bravery and the vulnerability that he showed on his show to just say, hey, I want to have an open, honest conversation about that. Just in the middle, hey, I want to apologize. I mean, this was all live. This was all happening on the interview. And that was very inspirational to me.
Do you think, and of course I want to psychoanalyze this because I'm curious as always, and I also want to share, when you were sharing that, I have a very similar but also different. Emilia says, same, but different. So it's same, but different. And shout out to Emilia. She's so cute when she says that. But anyways, so where was I going with that?
You had a similar one.
Oh, before that. Yeah. So to psychoanalyze this, you've been judged. Muscles, tattoos, muscle
Definitely.
car, working at the hospital, working at the gas station, people overlooking you, not taking you seriously, not respecting you, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This person admitted that they were going to overlook you, kind of, and then they didn't, and you over-delivered. I guess from that frame, because I think that this is something that unlocked you. I think it poked a deep wound you didn't even know was there, and you just can't even help yourself from crying. And I think that every human being has those. They have those. You can either get them poked, and then it ignites this part of you that's super angry, or you can have it poked in a way that unlocks you, and the love that you get, or the kindness that you get, or the compassion that you get, or the empathy that you get can unlock you, and tears. So, for example, if you were to go back, listeners, and listen to episode 1000, it's a 30-minute episode. At least 15 minutes of it is us trying to get words out because we're basically crying the whole time. Yeah. I don't know what about 1000 did it, but I knew right before we were recording, I was like, oh no, this is, I can feel it. It's like coming. And we just could not stop crying. But it was happy tears. It was unlocking tears. It was, I think, transformational tears. So what about that interview with that person? Do you think that's connected to being so undervalued for so long, particularly by men?
I think that's a big piece of it. Honestly, the biggest thing that I can land on is it was a compliment of my character, not my results. And that's what I've always said. I care more about being a good person. So the fact that he said that you're a great man and you're this and you're this, it wasn't you're more successful than I thought. That wasn't it.
Why do you think your character has always mattered to you more than results? From the childhood frame.
Because most people are never really going to know your results anyway. The only thing people really get to experience is your character.
Okay, go another layer, though. Rather than a rational answer, what's a...
That's the way I think of it. When you can't control your results, you can still control your character.
So do you think as a kid you didn't feel like you could control your results?
Definitely.
So at the gas station you were a good person, but people treated you like crap because you were lowly in terms of results, right?
Yeah, I definitely was looked down upon, but I always tried to be a good person. I tried to be a good man, as good of a man as I could be from a character standpoint. I always wanted to be a good man.
So why did this unlock you so much? Why did you cry so much, do you think? So the Teddy story, for the listeners that are new, I can't read the story without bawling my eyes out. And I know the reason why is because when I was going through such a hard time as a kid and no one really knew about it, there were people who believed in me. I could tear up just talking about it, particularly a teacher. And I get emotional even just talking about it right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where I'd be had I not been supported in that way at that time. But why for you? Oh my goodness. Why for you do you think that one hits so deep?
It's probably the childhood wound of wanting my dad to say that to me. Because when I met my dad, I don't remember what it was, but you look like you're doing well. Oh, and you're doing this and you're making this money. It was never you're a good man. I'm proud of the way you turned out as a man. I don't think that was ever there. And that's all I wanted.
Did you ever see your dad at all as a kid? No, because it was. What was the youngest?
I remember one time watching wrestling with him, but I don't even know if I knew he was my dad. I don't think I did. I just remember I was like with a stranger for the day. That's really all I remember. Man. 5 or 6 maybe? Young. Cuz I don't really remember. I don't remember much. I remember going there and then it was like this is a stranger. It's like a strange man, but I'm supposed to know this man. But I didn't really know. So when I tell my story, I always say when I was 27, I met my dad for the first time with the understanding he was my dad. Before then, I didn't. I think I met him once when I was little, but I didn't know he was my dad. It wasn't like, this is your father. You're his son. I don't think that happened. And if it did, I wasn't capable of understanding that.
Hey everybody, my name is Bianca and I am the co-founder and COO of Evolve Ventures Technologies. The only reason I'm able to do the things that I'm able to do today is because of the guidance that Alan gave and how much he never gave up on me, even when I wanted to. If you are looking for a coach, if you're looking for a mentor, there is no one better than Alan. There's nobody who's done more research. There's nobody who's put in more effort than him. He will go above and beyond to make sure that you become everything you've ever dreamed of. And I'm the proof. Alan, you changed my life and I will forever be grateful for you.
All right, so now same but different. I'll go quick
Same.
with it. Same but different. When you were telling your story about something that unlocked you emotionally, I thought of when I was in therapy and I asked a question that I was scared to ask. And the question that I was scared to ask, which I already knew the answer, but I was scared to get the external validation. Because inside I already knew the answer. And maybe this relates to what you're talking about, because inside you already knew you were a good man, like you had mentioned earlier. I asked her, she's in her 50s. She's been doing therapy for decades, at least a decade plus, and thousands of clients probably, if not hundreds. Probably thousands, honestly. Students, she's a professor as well. And I said, from 0 to 10, what's the level of trauma? And I needed her to know me well enough, so I had been doing therapy for at least 4 or 5 months, if not 6. I don't remember exactly how long, but it was long enough to where I was like, I can ask now with her giving me an actual evidential answer based on actual data of getting to know me. I talk a lot, so she really knows me. But anyway, so
I can imagine those sessions are probably just a 59-minute monologue after hello.
Believe it or not, they're actually not. They're meditative. It's fascinating. But when you do IFS stuff, you'll do some meditations. But anyways, I asked the question. I knew the answer, but I needed to hear it, but I didn't want to hear it. And she said, and she after told me she didn't want to tell me, but she also knew she couldn't lie to me. But anyways, so she essentially said, due to the chronic nature of it, it's the highest I've ever seen. It's 10. And that is an example of something I didn't know I needed to hear. Obviously, on some level I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask. Yeah. It's like I know I need to hear it, but I definitely don't want to hear it. And I already know. Of course, I already know that, right? Oh, it's a 2. Yeah, okay. Right? So I ask, and after that, I just broke down. Like completely Phoenix burned down to the floor in ashes, but not in a negative way. This was emotions in a not negative way. It hurt. I remember walking down the stairs, bawling, and just so sad for me. And then it came with this other side of it, which was, now I know. And also this other part of me that had reverence for it. Like, how the hell did I pull this off? You know? And for the newer listeners who don't know me at all, it doesn't exactly look like I'm an underdog. You know, it looks like I was always smart and I always had things given to me and I'm, successful, blah, blah, blah. It couldn't be farther from the truth, the reality that I've personally lived. And so for me, that was unbelievably validating. But here's my point. I don't know if I could have heard that from myself. I already knew it in me.
Yeah.
That's why I think therapy is a game changer, because you need to hear it from someone else.
Yeah.
You can't just hear it from yourself. And I don't believe people that say that. They're like, well, only you can give you the love that you always needed. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I think there's a part of us that will always need external love.
Well, if the internal wound caused what you're searching for, you got to kind of go fix the internal wound. And I don't know if that is something you can do on your own. Maybe to a certain percentage. But I would be different if I didn't meet my dad, for sure. 100%. I wouldn't be as whatever I am, balanced or whatever you classify it as. I wouldn't be the same. No way.
This is what people call the work.
Yeah.
Well, he's doing the work, the journaling, the gratitude practice, the humility, the emotional intelligence. But here's the real work. I didn't want to ask that question. I didn't want to go to therapy at all. When Emilia suggested it, I was like, hell no. I don't want to do that.
No.
I think that when people talk about the inner work, I think that's what they're talking about. The last thing I wanted to do was text my stepdad or even share my story with our listeners. I got interviewed on a podcast recently, and I opened it with, my last name's not really Lazaros. It's McCorkle. And I never wanted to talk about that stuff before. When you first met me, I never said any of that.
No, I didn't know that.
And I certainly don't want to say it publicly. It's like, well, wait, what do you mean? That stuff unlocks when you face these things, and more importantly, when you have people around you who love you in a way, maybe love you is the wrong phrase. When I say Emilia changed my life, what I mean is she loved me in a way no one else could. The real me. Not the fitness model me, not the coach me, not the hyper-conscious, successful podcaster me, semi-successful podcaster when she met me. But she loved the real me, the little Alan, and all the different parts of me. She still does. And I am so convinced of this, and this is probably controversial, but I don't think that I could have transformed without that. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to say there's no way. And I have a client right now who's going through similar growth stuff, and I'm sitting there going, you're going to need to become the person who earns your person, because your person's going to unlock you in a way you can't. And that's my truth. And I know that goes against, probably a lot of different spiritual practices of, you can love yourself as much as others love you. I never believed that. I think that we need someone else outside of us to love us in a way we never were loved, that we needed to be loved. And I think that after that, you can transform beyond what most people think is possible. It's certainly beyond what I thought was possible, because a lot of the stuff that we do at NLU, I always was like, yeah, this is good. Awesome. We're going to have a successful podcast. But when it comes to some other stuff, this inner work we're talking about, dude, no, never anticipated that. Never anticipated therapy. Never knew the Teddy story was going to come to me. Never understood how much I was going to transform as a human being. Dude, I didn't know that we were going to have women primarily as our listeners.
Or the team.
I knew we'd have a big team. I had no idea it would be amazing, empowered women for 90% of it.
Yeah.
So there's so many things about our growth, my growth, our success that I never anticipated. And it all has to do with the emotional stuff. And I think that people that are listening right now, you got to ask yourself, what is it that you need to hear, your inner child needs to hear, and then who is someone who really cares about you regardless of themselves, who really loves you unconditionally. And I don't mean unconditionally from the sense of you can wake up every day and slap them in the face and they're still going to love you. What I mean is They love you unconditionally enough to where they want to see you win regardless of themselves. They want to see you loved regardless of themselves. You don't have to wish them a happy birthday for them to love you. It's not so conditional. And the last thing I'll say is that person who doesn't even know you, Kev, is giving you praise, love, appreciation, support, whatever, that is probably on some level what you've always needed to hear. And they're not doing it for gain. They're not doing it because they're supposed to. They're not doing it because they're your mom or your dad or your uncle or your aunt. And they don't have to. They don't have to say it. They didn't have to say that. So there's something to that. And hopefully everyone listening does this kind of work. Whatever this kind of work is, it's hard to explain the benefits. I don't fully get it, but I know that I'm different.
Same. I found myself on other podcasts. It's hard because when people ask what is one thing someone can do, I don't want to use the cliche answer, but it's either get a therapist, get a counselor, or get someone to talk to. Because I believe I'm very similar with that. I think there's only so much you can do by yourself.
100%.
I think it's, and I don't want that to be disempowering. There's a lot you can do by yourself, for sure,
right,
for your own self-awareness and your growth and your inner understanding and breaking free of stuff. But at some point, it helps to have someone there to say, have you ever thought of it this way, though? Have you ever, why do you think that made you feel that way? Because if you knew the answers, or if you knew the right questions to ask to get yourself to the answers you need, you'd already have the answers you need. Sometimes it's just that outside perspective.
How do you solve a wound alone that wasn't created alone?
100%. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
You could probably get pretty close. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you can get 70% of the way, but then the last 30% is the 30% you're searching for. Mm-hmm. I went and saw Matt recently. I visited Matt. I'm probably going to get emotional talking about that. And we were having a conversation about something. And him and Carly, his girlfriend's Carly, and she said, we were talking about you the other night. And I said, oh, what were you saying? And they said, we were just talking about how humble you are. You're one of the most humble people I've ever met. And it was just like, where the hell is this coming from? Out of nowhere. We're just having a joking conversation about something, and then it just hit me.
You sure they weren't talking about me?
Well played.
Oh, I had to. I'm sorry.
No. I think it was great. It was very well timed. Here's the thing, and at the risk of sounding arrogant, that's not my goal, and hopefully we'll be able to get past that. What if what you're waiting for someone to say to you is something that you say to yourself all the time, you just don't believe it yet? I do believe again, somebody humble might not say this. I do believe I'm one of the most humble people. I really do. I put my head down, I work, and I just try to stay humble. I'm grateful for everything we have. I know I could lose all this tomorrow. I want to be the most humble possible. But I do believe I have a wonderful character, and I work really hard to stay aligned with that character. But how often am I going to say that to myself without deluding myself?
Yeah.
But when somebody comes and says it, it's like, oh my goodness, thank you. Like, I feel that way. The reason I think I cried is because I actually feel that way. I was actually able. The other reason
you cried is that you've always felt that way, but no one ever gives you credit for it.
I think the deepest depth of this is this. I was actually able to take the compliment and own it and receive it and say, thank you so much. I think I do believe that's true, actually. I actually believe that's true. Not, oh, you're too kind. I really, thank you. I feel so seen, and I'm so grateful you had the courage and the vulnerability to call yourself out on your own podcast to give me that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I wonder if that isn't it. You can say it to yourself.
Kev, you and I drive to 5. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
good.
For you, it's other people would say it to you and you never fully believed it, and now you do, so it makes you emotional. I'm the opposite, where I always believed it, but someone else saying it made me, no one ever gave it to me. Mm. I always knew I had level 10 trauma, but no one's ever told me that. I always knew that I believed in myself. I always knew I was a good person, but people wouldn't give me that. And so I think our listeners are probably on one end of this naturally. Either you believe it yourself, but no one ever gives you credit for it, which is ironic, or you don't believe it yourself and people are saying it. This client that I'm talking about, she doesn't believe she's beautiful. Everyone else calls her beautiful all the time.
Yeah.
So for her, maybe it is learning how to believe it yourself and take the compliments, actually take the compliments that you get. Whereas I felt the opposite in terms of I actually do think that I'm a great man. And I do believe that I've always been a great man while I've made many mistakes. But I don't feel, if anything, I feel like people gave me the opposite. I feel like people made me feel like a shithead. You know, I know that I'm humble, but no one's ever called me that except for Emilia. I mean, even that, we joke and we laugh, right? It's like hilarious. But that's the thing. So all I'm saying is, listeners, ask yourself, do you believe it? And you need to hear it from someone who really does love you for external validation? Or do you not believe it even though you hear it all the time?
That's a great question. Heavy one.
It's good stuff.
These are my favorite episodes to do. I don't know. Maybe that's weird. As emotional and as deep as they are, these for me are the ones where I feel right doing this. Whatever this is what I feel most right doing. So hopefully...
You don't want to talk about the top 10 ways to succeed?
I like the top 10 ways to succeed.
You know, I'm kidding.
Especially if one of them is do the inner work. Because that is really... That's what holistic means at NLU. Inner, outer, well-rounded, 360, health, wealth, love, all this stuff. But a lot of it's going to start with very challenging conversations like this. Next level nugget, before we get out of here, what is it? I feel like there was a lot of... Shout out to one of our... I don't know if Philip listens to this show. I think Philip listens to this show. He said, notable quotable.
Nice.
Yeah. It's probably said, you come up with that? That's fire. Strong word.
Nice. Thank you, Philip. If you were talking about me.
No, it's probably... I think it was
50. I'm at least 50%
I was going to say, there we go with the humility. There we go with the humility again.
Yeah, there
you.
it goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm at least 70% of the it's funny, depending on how much I'm talking. Okay, my next level nugget.
Yeah, give it to us, will you?
Anything that makes you extremely emotional, but not necessarily pain emotion. Yes, it's pain emotion, but it's not necessarily sad tears or happy tears, or it's transformational tears. My next level nugget would be whatever has created transformational tears for you, there's something to learn about yourself underneath that.
My next level nugget would be when external validation meets internal self-talk, that means something. I don't know exactly what it means, but I would argue that it means something. That's it. Have to leave it a little bit open-ended. Next Level Nation, if you have not yet joined our private Facebook group, please do so. If you want to have deep conversations like this, and not always super deep conversations like this, but it's an opportunity for you to talk about stuff that really matters. Imagine, this is a really good exercise. Create a list of 5 people you would share this podcast episode with the understanding that this is the type of self-improvement that you do. If you don't have 5 people, that's okay. Totally fine. Honestly, it's probably the majority, unfortunately. Those are the type of people in Next Level Nation, and we would love to have you there if it is aligned for you. Link is in the show notes.
Yeah, heart-driven, humble people who want to grow and contribute, for sure. Such a good community.
It is.
What was I talking about? What was I going to talk about? Group coaching. So, Group 13 starts January 2nd, and we've done 12 groups. What do I want to say from the heart here? We've improved this thing for 2 years. And it is going to help you succeed externally. It's going to help you stay consistent. But it's also going to help you a lot on the inner work too. Every single session that we do, there's 6 hour-long sessions. Amy L. is the assistant coach. She does connection calls in between for anything you might be missing or need extra help on. And it's a 12-week program, 90 days transformation. What do I want to say about this? Many of the team members, many of our community have been through it. Some people have been through it 3 times. And that's how good it is, and it keeps getting better. So I hope that you join us. It is unreasonably affordable. It's $96, $97 per month for the 3 months. If you email me, Alan@nextleveluniverse.com, because the website's not set up yet for Group 13, email me, Alan@nextleveluniverse.com. Say, hey, I want in for Group 13. I will send you an invoice for $97 for the first month, and you will lock your spot. We've already had someone do that, and Group 13 is already shaping up to be awesome. Start 2024 off right.
Tomorrow for episode number 1545, Alan wanted to do this episode based on a book that he's reading. What's always been true about you? So that is a little bit connected to what we talked about today. So make sure you tune in tomorrow for that episode. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep doing the work. Next Level Nation.